We've done gravel bikes as road bikes, but how about road bikes as gravel bikes? This is a brand new Specialized Roubaix SL8, and when it launched, one of the standout features was a massive tyre clearance. There's space for up to 40mm wide tyres on this bike. So, does that make it a gravel bike in all but name? In this video, we'll find out. I have, as you can see, a pair of 40mm wide Continental gravel tyres. Sort the wheels, see if they fit, and if they do fit, go for a spin here in the Forest of Dean and see how it performs and find out whether it's both a road bike and a gravel bike. So road bikes have changed a lot over the last 10 or 20 years. They've gotten lighter, they've gotten stiffer, they've gotten more aero, but my favourite change by far is a bigger tyre clearance that road bikes now offer. Both road race bikes and endurance bikes like this. Gone are the days of 23mm wide tyres. Thankfully, most of us have bought into the benefits of wider tyres, especially here in the UK where the roads are in an awful state. Now, this new Roubaix SL8 is a class-leading bike in terms of tyre clearance. Bigger than the old Trek Domani at 38 and really trumps all other endurance bikes when it comes to tyre clearance. And to put that tyre clearance into perspective, the original Specialized Diverge, their pure gravel bike, when it launched back in 2013, 2014, had space for 35mm wide tyres. So this bike absolutely dwarfs that original gravel bike. But while road bikes have clearly evolved, so have gravel bikes, and the new Diverge goes up to 47mm wide tyres. But is 40 wide enough for gravel? Well, it depends on the sort of gravel you're doing and how chunky it is and how demanding you are as a rider. But with space of 40mm wide tyres, this does offer possibly enough clearance for lots of people. So let's get the tyres and wheel change and see if they fit and then how it rides. This will be a nice, easy, quick job. Got my Feedback Sports stand, keeping the bike up in the air, remove the front wheel, through axle. All I have to do is swap over the disc brake rotors and we're good to go. And that does appear to fit with loads of space between the tyre and the fork. Very impressive indeed. Now the back wheel, chain in the smallest sprocket on the cassette, remove the through axle, helps to just move that rear mech out of the way, drop it out, nice and easy. And in we go with the gravel bike tyre. I will be amazed if it fits because clearance at the back of a bike is always more limited than the front. That's in place. Slide the through axle in there, tighten up. Oh my goodness, would you believe it? The tyre is not rubbing the frame at all. And the disc brake doesn't even need adjusting either. No rubbing, easy. And there we go, the tyres do actually fit the bike. I am flabbergasted. There is space for tyres and quite a bit of mud clearance around the rear stays as well. It doesn't look tight at all. So does that make the new Roubaix a gravel bike? Well, we'll ride it in a moment and find out. But before we do, let's look at the differences and the similarities with the Diverge, the company's dedicated gravel bike, to see how it actually compares. There are lots of features in common. They both, of course, have a future shock below the stem. They both have mudguard mounts and top tube mounts, but the Diverge does get fork mounts for bike packing, and of course it has that down tube storage, the SWAT storage for tools and snacks in the down tube, which this bike doesn't have. The frame proportions and shapes are very similar as well. Another small difference is the seat post and seat tube, which on this bike is designed to give more flex for more comfort in the saddle, where the Diverge has a normal round seat post, so you can fit a suspension or a dropper seat post if you want. So this should be smoother in the saddle potentially than the Diverge. And then when we look at the geometry, the angles and measurements, the differences are really small and almost surprising, and it could perhaps be a Diverge in all but name. So on paper at least, the geometry differences between the two bikes is very close indeed. So I think it's time I've got to change, and you join me out there in the woods somewhere to see how it actually performs. Okay, we are halfway through today's video and time to tell you about today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one platform that makes it super easy and simple and quick to create your own professional looking website. And honestly guys, it really couldn't be any easier and simpler than this. And there are tons of templates to get started with, and everything can be customized to your heart's desire with a nice drag and drop interface. And you can build a website for anything. An online store if you have a bike shop, a cool bike brand, online classes, a photo gallery, or start blogging. There are tools for literally everything. So if you run any kind of business, then Squarespace is the place to be. So what are you waiting for? Get yourself a new website right now and get a free trial. Use my special link down below in the description. And if you enjoyed, there's 10% off your first purchase with my special code on screen now. Right, let's carry on with today's video. So, does it work then? Well, judging by a smile on my face right now, it's a big fat yes. It doesn't feel like a fish out of water at all. It's coping with the gravel, the mud, the single track trails just fine. I really am blown away. I really shouldn't be that surprised it works as well as it does, given how close the numbers are to a diverge. Now sadly, I don't have a diverge here today for a side-by-side comparison, but I have ridden the bike several times over the last few years, and there is a small difference between the two bikes. I would say if I'm really splitting hairs, the diverge is a bit more planted, a bit more stable at high speed and the rough stuff, but there's not really much in it. But the real benefit of the diverge and a gravel bike over this road bike is the tyre clearance. Now, mud clearance is an issue for me at the time of year, as you can tell probably, and mud clearance on the bike is a bit limited, but it's not actually that bad. You probably could go to a wide tyre if you're riding somewhere dry and dusty, but for me the big advantage of the diverge and most other gravel bikes right now is the bigger tyre clearance. So you can fit a 45mm wide tyre on that diverge and still have good mud clearance. And for me, a bigger gravel tyre suits the riding I'm doing in the trail conditions right now. More traction, more grip in the wet, slippery trails, and a bit more comfort as well. You get a lot more comfort from a 45 than you do a 40. So that's the key difference really. And it really depends on the riding you're doing. I know lots of people riding smooth, dry gravel occasionally with lots of road would find a setup just fine. But I think if you are trying to ride as much off-road as you can, then a gravel bike is clearly still a better choice. But really interesting to see how Specialized have moved the Roubaix so close to that diverge in numbers and tyre clearance. The Future Shot works so well on the bike and really comes into its own on the rough gravel tracks I'm riding today. I have the lightest of 3 springs fitted, and it does an excellent job of smoothing out the rocks, roots and ripples. And combined with part of a seat post bending between your legs, the ride comfort on the bike is fantastic. It's definitely smoother in my experience than a Diverge with a dropper seat post, but not as smooth as a brand new Diverge STR, but likely smooth enough for most people riding mixed terrain on their bike. It's also pretty rapid as well. There's ample frame stiffness, the weight is low, and the gear ratios of the SRAM Rival Axler group sets are working well today for me. Right, let's dive down a little trail, see where it goes. So there we go, the Roubaix SL8 does indeed work as a gravel bike with a 40mm wide tyres fitted, and I'm impressed and a little bit surprised how well it does work on gravel, in the woods, mud and single track. And I think for lots of people, it could be the perfect one bike to do everything you need. Two bikes in one. Slick tyres for road riding during the week, and some knobbly tyres for weekend gravel grinding. And it does make choosing a new bike perhaps trickier than before, or perhaps easier. Don't need two bikes anymore, just need one. But, and there is a small but here, and it all depends on your preference and requirements, of course. This is based on my experience. I would still choose the Diverge if I was trying to do lots of gravel riding, because I like the space for bigger tyres. You can fit a 45 on that bike and still have mud clearance, space and mud guards as well, and bigger tyres are definitely my preference for gravel riding, for more traction and grip in the mud, and a bit more comfort as well. And a 45 doesn't roll any slower really than a 40mm wide tyre, so I take the bigger, plumper tyre for all the benefits and no real downside. So for me, I would still choose a gravel bike and run it with some road tyres rather than a road bike as a gravel bike. I think that's a better way to do it, because a gravel bike with some slick tyres isn't really that compromise at all. But it depends on your riding style. If you're more road and less gravel, this might be a better option, a better way to go. If you're more gravel and less road, then a gravel bike with some spare slick tyres is probably a more sensible choice. But choices is what the bike gives us. The really versatile package, it has to be said, the way it handles gravel and road. Yeah, it's a really good bike, and probably the best endurance bike in that category right now for all the reasons, plus the comfort from the Future Shock. The only downside really is the value for money isn't great. You're getting SRAM rival access and some fairly cheap wheels compared to what you get from Canyons and Giants, where they offer you a better group set and carbon wheels. So the value for money to one side, this bike is very impressive indeed. So that has been a really interesting experiment, testing the Roubaix SL8 as a gravel bike and the findings that it's brought up. Let me know what you think of this video and this idea of running a road bike with gravel tyres, but leave me a comment down below. And if you want to see a review of the Roubaix against some of the best endurance bikes in the category, the Defy from Giant and the Canyon Enduro Race, then check out the video right up here. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel by hitting the button down here. But that's all today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all again very soon.